You are listening to Bedtime Dreamy Tales. Subscribe to our channel for new story. Story title: The Straw, the Coal, and the Bean. In a quaint village nestled among green meadows and blooming wildflowers lived a poor old woman named Greta. Her tiny cottage, though modest, was always filled with the comforting aroma of herbs hanging from the rafters and the warmth of a constantly burning hearth. Greta, with her frail but steady hands, had spent her morning gathering beans from her little garden, hoping to cook a hearty meal that would last her several days. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the village, as Greta began to prepare her dinner. She made a fire on her hearth, and to speed up the flames, she added a handful of dry straw she had collected from the nearby fields. As the fire crackled and roared to life, Greta started emptying the beans into a large iron pan. In her haste, she didn't notice a mischievous bean leap from the dish, landing on the floor beside a piece of straw. At that moment, a lively coal, having escaped the roaring fire, tumbled down beside them. The straw, sensing an opportunity for conversation, began, "Dear friends, where do you come from?" The coal, still smoldering and full of energy, replied, "I sprang from the fire, and if I hadn't escaped, I would have been burnt to ashes." The bean, still trembling from the fall, said, "I too have escaped with my skin intact. If the old woman had gotten hold of me, I'd be simmering in that pan with my comrades by now." The straw sighed, "And what about me? Greta destroyed all my brethren in fire and smoke. She grabbed 60 of us at once and took our lives. Luckily, I slipped through her fingers." "What are we to do now?" asked the coal, her voice tinged with urgency. The bean thought for a moment and said, "Since we have all fortunately escaped death, we should stick together. Let's leave this dangerous place and seek our fortune in a foreign land." The proposition delighted the straw and the coal, and so the unlikely trio set off on their journey. They ventured through the village, past fields of wheat and corn, and into the nearby woods. The forest was alive with the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves, creating a symphony of nature that accompanied their steps. The path was not easy. They had to dodge curious ants, avoid the sharp thorns of blackberry bushes, and steer clear of the bustling activities of squirrels and rabbits. As they wandered deeper into the woods, they encountered other small creatures who had stories of their own. A chatty cricket regaled them with tales of nighttime adventures under the moonlight, while a wise old owl perched high in the trees offered advice on the safest paths through the forest. The three friends were in high spirits, feeling more confident about their journey. The days turned into weeks, and the trio became well acquainted with the rhythms of the forest. They learned to find food, shelter, and even made new friends. A shy mushroom guided them to a hidden grove where they could rest peacefully, and a family of hedgehogs shared their burrow on a cold night. After a long trek, they came upon a sparkling brook, its waters dancing over smooth stones and reflecting the sunlight like 1,000 tiny mirrors. The brook was beautiful but presented a challenge, for there was no bridge or plank to cross. The straw, ever resourceful, said, "I have an idea. I'll lay myself across the brook, and you can walk over me as if I were a bridge." The straw stretched itself from one bank to the other, forming a delicate bridge. The coal, bold and impetuous, stepped onto the makeshift bridge without hesitation. Halfway across, however, the coal heard the rushing water below and became frightened. She stopped, unable to move forward or backward, the fear paralyzing her. The straw, feeling the heat of the coal, began to smolder. In a moment, the straw burst into flames, snapped in two, and fell into the brook. The coal followed, hissing loudly as she touched the water and was extinguished. The bean, who had wisely stayed on the shore, watched the disaster unfold. She couldn't help but laugh at the misadventure. She laughed so hard that she split open, her sides bursting with mirth. Just as the bean thought her end was near, a kindly tailor named Hans was passing by. Hans was on a journey to find work in the next town, carrying his sewing kit and some provisions. Hearing the bean's laughter, he approached the brook and saw the poor bean in distress. Hans had a compassionate heart and immediately took out his needle and thread. With careful stitches, he sewed the bean back together, his hands working swiftly yet gently. The bean thanked Hans profusely, her gratitude flowing as freely as the brook. Hans noticed something peculiar about his repair. "I've used black thread," he remarked. "Now, you'll always bear a mark of this adventure." The bean, smiling warmly, replied, "I'll wear it with pride. It will remind me of the kindness of a stranger." Hans continued his journey, and the bean, now whole, decided to stay by the brook, becoming a storyteller herself. She shared her adventures with other beans and forest creatures, teaching them about bravery, friendship, and the importance of kindness. As the days turned into weeks, the bean's fame spread throughout the forest. Creatures from far and wide came to listen to her tales. She recounted the bravery of the straw, the impetuous nature of the coal, and the compassion of Hans the tailor. Her stories brought animals together, forging new friendships and alliances. One day, Greta, the old woman, wandered into the forest to collect herbs. She stumbled upon the bean, now a well-known storyteller. Greta, recognizing the bean she had nearly cooked, listened to her story with fascination. Moved by the tale of courage and kindness, Greta decided to change her ways. She vowed to be more mindful of the small lives around her and to spread kindness in her village. The bean, now a beloved figure in both the forest and the village, continued to share her stories, inspiring generations of creatures and people alike. And so from that day on, all beans bore a black seam, a mark of resilience and the kindness of a tailor named Hans. If you like this story, please give this video a like. For more stories, go to bedtimedreamytales.com. See you in the next story.